You're listening to the Soul Career Podcast, the podcast that brings you stories from people who've taken a risk to discover careers that fill them with purpose and make them come alive. I'm your host, Lysandra Ricketts. Now for the episode. Okay, this is going to be the most fun Soul Career episode of all time. I have with me my best friend from Harvard Business School, Kaneisha Grayson, founder of the Art of Applying, the largest Black-owned graduate admissions consulting firm in the US and I think in the world.
In the world.
Yeah, they've helped over 1,000 non-traditional applicants get into top business, policy, and law schools with over 20 million US dollars in scholarships to pay for it. Kaneisha, you are the reason Soul Career exists.
Aw.
You came to visit me in Jamaica in 2018, the year your company hit a million US dollars in sales, and you convinced me to launch a coaching company as well. Another fun fact is that we're both ENFPs on the Myers-Briggs personality test. Right? What percentage of business school students are ENFPs, Kanisha?
I think very few. Also just hello and to all the Soul Career listeners and viewers, and really happy to be here, Lysandra. Great to see you. Yeah, I think very few. I can think of some very specific ENFPs that we went to business school with, and quite a few of them I do think started businesses right after school. But I think the ENTJ profile is the more typical business school profile.
Okay.
Lysandra, yeah.
So I just wanted to ask you that question because I wanted to share that we're both ENFPs. We both love psychometric tests. And that is the end of my intro. So welcome to the podcast, Kanisha. We're so happy to have you on it.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I think we're going to have a ton of fun. I am concentrating on not yelling because my favorite thing is to scream on Zoom calls, but I have, this great audio setup, so I don't need to yell, even though we're going to end up screaming, laughing, maybe even crying. But yeah, we're going to have a great time. I can't wait to share my story and insights, encouragement, just everything with you, with your listeners, and this is just a great time for just me and you to have some FaceTime and have fun. Yeah.
Exactly. So, Kanisha, let's start with your business. Tell us about
Yes.
the art of applying.
Yeah, so the Art of Applying is an admissions consulting firm. And as you said, we are the largest Black-owned graduate admissions consulting firm in the world. We are also the largest woman of color-owned graduate admissions consulting firm in the world. So there's other women-owned, but as far as I can tell, I'm a member of the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants, which is our nonprofit professional organization. So that doesn't mean all the companies are in that organization, but a lot of them are, and we are kind of seen as the vanguard of the industry. And as far as I can tell, I do have the largest Black owned and the largest woman of color owned. And of course, if someone wants to challenge that, come at me, sis, and we can see. But of course, it's not a competition. But I think it is really important for me to assert that because it's true. As far as I know, it's true. And it's very inspiring. I took my first paid client in 2009 while we were at Harvard Business School. And that has since turned into, one paid client. So really $0 and a laptop to, what became $1 million company with 8 full-time employees. And now we are a smaller company with like a wildly beautiful profit margin. And I would say a wildly beautiful freedom margin. So yeah, and we can talk about what I mean by freedom margin because I just made up that term. But yeah, so we help people get into business school, policy school, law school. Those are our main degrees. We also do social work and education. We have a signature program called Application Accelerator that is a really in-depth, hands-on, intensive boot camp that is every single thing you need to know to get into a top grad school and get as much money as possible to pay for it. We work with people from all over the world, and we have a lot of fun helping our clients achieve their dreams.
Woohoo! Love that. And so tell us about your packages, your
Yeah.
pricing, your revenues. Like, I love to hear that stuff about.
Yeah, let's do the money rundown. So I've been in business now officially, I guess, 11 years. I do claim a more round, we like numbers, Lysandra. So I claim a rounder starting date of May 1st, 2010, because it's just like, I really like May 1st. We'll talk about another really important May 1st milestone for me. But so I chose years ago, May 1st, but I really took my first money in 2009. So I've been in business 10 years. Our revenue for 2020, and just to be clear, I'm sure your listeners know, but just to be clear, revenue is the top line of the profit, uh, the profit and loss statement. So that's not how much money Kaneisha keeps.
Mhm.
So our revenues last year were a little bit under $600,000. And then I pay myself $100,000, literally flat, all those beautiful zeros, 1000000, whatever, 00. And then I also take all the profits. So of course I do not starve my business of money. So I do leave some money in the business. So here's how it looks. I was paid $100,000, and then we had $198,000 in profit. Yeah, thank you, Lysandra. So that is, if you add back in my compensation, that's a 50% profit margin, which is astounding and amazing, right? But even if we take out my compensation, that's a huge profit margin. I also was able to, the company put $25,000 into my 401k. And the 401k only exists because the company exists. And so my total compensation on paper is really $100,000 in salary plus $200,000 in what's called distributions, and then $25,000 in the retirement that was given to me. And so that would be, what is that, $325,000. So
Yes.
yeah,
So that's
that's a,
more than 50% net margin on those
yeah,
sales that you made last year in 2020. That's
for sure.
in a
For sure.
pandemic.
During a pandemic. So I'm really grateful to myself, my team, and for our clients for trusting us with their dreams during such a time of uncertainty. So our packages, our signature package is application accelerator. So that package is not I don't see anything like that at any other graduate admissions consulting firm. If you ever do see something like that, they copied us. So there is not anything like that. What do I mean by that? You can almost think of it as a school of what it takes to get into grad school. So it's like grad school, prep school. And we work with our clients for anywhere between 15 months to 8 months. They all pay the same tuition regardless of when they come. So it's much better for the clients to sign up in January, February, than to wait till, October to sign up, because everyone graduates on my favorite date, May 1st. So whether you come January 2021 or October 2021, everyone graduates May 1st, 2022 out of all of our packages. So Application Accelerator is our signature package. The tuition for that, the regular tuition is 27,000 US dollars, which is a really big investment. That's a lot of money. That's more than my car costs. But the thing is, we're not selling a car, right? And our clients are not buying a car. What they are buying is an extraordinary, transformative experience that's going to help them get into their dream school with as much money as possible, with a guarantee. And the guarantee is that if you do all the work in the program and you aren't admitted into one of your target schools, then we will work with you for free the next year. So you pay no tuition and you be in the program again for a year. To help you understand, or to help the listeners and viewers understand the return on that investment, on average, over 60% of our clients receive scholarships, and they receive over $70,000 per school,
Mhm.
not total, per school. And so the money is well worth it. So the regular investment is 27,000, and then we do provide a decisiveness discount, which is like a cute little term I made up. I love making up like cute little terms. And so we will take off, I think it's $5,000. It might be $5,000 or $6,000 if you commit to the program during your breakthrough call. And we let people know about that decisiveness opportunity before the call so that they're not caught off guard. So that's our main program. Should I talk about the other ones or?
No, that's good. I
Okay.
actually, so I mentioned at the top of the podcast episode that you made $1 million in 2018.
Yeah.
Yet 2020 was
Yeah.
more profitable for you than 2018 was. So what do you attribute to that
Yeah.
shift in versus revenue versus profitability? What changed between 2018 and
For
2020?
sure. For sure. So in 2018, we made $1 million, and I'm pretty sure my compensation, actually, I just want to look.
Yeah, no problem.
To see what it was. But I know I know 100% that I made less money. I'm just a little bit unclear exactly how much I made. One thing I'll just share, what I'm looking at is we use Bench for our bookkeeping. And I'm looking at Bench, years ago. They have all my they have this squeeze page up where you have to click on like register for a webinar, and I'm like, guys, don't do that. All right. In 2018, on $1 million, our profit was 138,000. And then my pay, I'm not exactly sure what it was because I had a lot of employees, but let's just assume it was 100,000. So that that kind of looks like 240,000, but that's not really what it was because you have to leave some money in the business. So we call it 240,000, but you want to leave at least 50K in the business, which brings us down to, I think, 190K on $1 million. So let's just call it 190K on $1 million. Okay. And then to be like 325 on 600K, that's a drastic difference. So I attribute it to several things. One, I was in a really high investment coaching program. I was paying $5,500 a month. And it ended up not in the long term being the right fit for me because of several reasons. One, it was very, very heavily dependent on using Facebook ads to generate leads. So to get people to know about the company and to book calls. And so I spent $100,000 that year on Facebook ads. So that's where some of the money went, right? So it was really dependent on that. It was really also dependent on having a lot of consultation calls. So at one point I had 5, I can't even fathom this now. Not that it would never happen again, but it was way too bloated. At one point I had 5 full-time salespeople.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember, yeah.
And it was fun, but it was also very high octane, very stressful, and very expensive because you have to keep those 5 people busy with enough people to speak to a day. So let's say they each need at least 3 people to speak to a day. That's 15 leads, which are prospective graduate school applicants you need a day. Now my team, we could talk to 15 people in a week. Right. And that's enough. So we talk to fewer people now. We actually don't run Facebook or Instagram ads currently, and we haven't since October 2019. We may start doing that in the future, but we don't need it right now because most of our leads come from our YouTube channel. But not YouTube ads, just, YouTube videos like the ones some of you may be watching of this interview. But that's a big difference is I had a lot of employees. I was using a lot of money on advertising. I was spending $5,500 a month on a coaching program. And that's not to say that you shouldn't invest in coaching. Clearly I did. Clearly I have a business where I charge people. So do you. But it's important to make sure that what you're being taught is in line with your values and your own philosophy. And it's also important to make sure that you're not just getting yourself into a treadmill. My business was a cash eating machine.
Hmm.
And that's just not how I want to live my life. I would wake up every morning and look at my phone to see how many breakthrough calls we had booked, because at the height, our monthly expenses were about $85,000 a month.
Whew. Wow.
And now our monthly expenses, including paying me, is about $30,000 a month.
Wow. Yeah.
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 I'm so much happier. I have so much more free time. Our clients are actually happier, even though they're paying more than they did back then. Our salespeople are happier because we've moved into a more inquiry based way of selling versus an advocating way of selling, or it's more influence, how you were saying, versus persuasion. And so those are a lot of the changes. I would also say big things that helped us is um, increasing the tuition of Application Accelerator to be more in line with the value that we were delivering, as well as adding the guarantee to give people that sense of certainty that they're not going to spend 5 figures on something and end up with nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
actually remember a big internal shift that happened for you as well between even 2019 to
Yeah.
2020. Um, you were, from my perspective, and let me know if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
or go, 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 all the time,
Mhm.
the treadmill that you mentioned. And
Yeah.
in 2019, starting in 2019,
Yeah.
took a deliberate step back to say, I cannot keep going at that pace and
For
still
sure.
be healthy and live the life that I want.
For sure. So, in the midst of, striving to make $1 million in my business, no matter what happened, right? So, I know we'll get there. Maybe that there is now, but like in 1 year, I lost my mom. I moved from Austin to New York. My husband at the time asked for a divorce. And then I'm actually somebody who I was very close to, one of my business besties, had some sort of epiphany and threw me out of her life. Like, this is all within 6 months. And then I make $1 million. Like, what? And then a few months later, I have to lay off like most of my team because even though we made $1 million, our costs are just too high. All of that happened in about a 6 month period from February 2018 till November
I remember
2018.
I remember that year, and I actually remember the day you landed in New York. You moved, you and your husband at the time decided together to move from Austin
Yeah,
to New York. You landed in New York, and like a day later, he asked for a divorce or something.
literally, like it was 4 days. I mean, we were there for 4 days,
Mhm.
and he was acting very bizarre, very stressed out. And I was like, very concerned, but I was concerned about him, but I was also just like in my hustle mode. So, he was doing whatever he was doing all day, and I was just like head down on the computer. When we moved, May 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Another May 1st. And yeah, May 1st is when we moved. So May 1st is a really important date for me. So yeah, it was a really stressful year. And then so all this time I'm struggling with an underactive thyroid, hypothyroidism. I don't have Hashimoto's, which is the full-blown disease and disorder, but I'm on that spectrum. So I take like medication every day. And just exhausted all the time, stressed out all the time, and just frenetic pace of work and life. Over functioning in my business, over functioning in my marriage. And so over functioning is where you're, in slang, doing the most, and doing the most because you're either surrounding yourself by people who are under functioning, which is what was happening in my marriage, or you are overextended. And I was overextended financially. I thank God I didn't go into debt. I didn't do like rack up, tens of thousands of dollars of debt or anything like that. I just, you know,
Yeah.
you got to make 87K because our expenses are 85K. Like, no, if I make 87, okay, I made $140,000 in revenue in June 2020.
In
And
one.
I got to, yes, and I got to keep $110,000. Yeah. So,
So what I
yeah.
call that state that you were in 2018, before the loss of your mom, before the divorce,
Yeah.
that go, go, go state is that separation of who you really are from who you think you are, who you think you want to be. So the mind is dominating your life, and it's a separation from the core because you were running yourself into the ground. And then this tragedy happened, a series of tragic events
Yeah.
shifted your whole self and the way that you thought about things. So, how did that, what was that shift that happened?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because before this happened to me, I had a genre of movie that was my favorite type of movie. And it sounds bizarre, but this is literally what my favorite genre was. My favorite genre of movie is about like a really beautiful, ambitious woman who like is moving really fast in her life and her life looks perfect. And then everything goes wrong and falls apart and she has to rebuild her life and decide what her values are. That was my favorite type of movie. And it always stars someone like Gabrielle Union. And that's what happened to my life.
Yeah.
My favorite type of movie happened to me. And so when I was hit with this series of tragedies, losing my mom when she was just 57, or maybe she was about to turn 57. She died like 2 weeks before her birthday. Losing my mom, moving is already traumatic enough, then getting a divorce, and like then also just the pain of layoffs. Obviously it's terrible to get let go, but it is terrible to fire people and it's terrible to lay people off. It is heart-wrenching.
It's traumatic. Yeah.
It's traumatic. So all those traumas, at some point, I could not just keep going on business as usual. One, where's the payoff even for doing that? Right? Like why what does money matter if I don't have a partner, a like-minded partner to enjoy it with? What does money matter if I have no free time to enjoy it with? What does money matter if I don't have good health to feel fully present? What does having $1 million business matter if I got a $17 level of happiness?
Yeah.
So I just had to screech the tires and just stop. And I remember saying, I'm just going to run my business in a sane way. I think this is the last half of 2019. And whatever money it makes, it makes.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's what I decided. I
And
was
what
like,
ended
yeah,
up happening was that 2020 was your most profitable year ever in the
yeah,
business. And
ever.
you took 6 weeks out of the
I
business.
did.
Your team ran it for you, and it was still your most profitable year ever. And that's
That's
what
right.
happened when you put yourself first.
I agree. When you put yourself first and when you um, get honest with yourself about what you really value and not what you think will give you value.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So um I value free time. I value spending a lot of time with my friends. I value flexibility. I never thought that I didn't value those things, but then they were competing with things that deep down I thought would give me value. Well, my Harvard Business School classmates, they're always in Forbes and like the 40 under 40 lists, and their startups get a lot of attention and I don't. And maybe I'll never get attention from Forbes, but at least if I have $1 million business, that's legitimate, right? And like that can't be the way that I arrange my life, because there will always be people that I literally sat next to or across the way from at Harvard making literally 100 times
Yeah.
what I make. If I make 300K, that puts me in the top, I think, 2% of earners in all of America. But I could just look 3 seats over and somebody's making 1.3 million as a partner at McKinsey. so it can't be about comparing myself to other people, and nor can it be about when I do this, I'll finally be worth it. I mean, that's the same type of thinking that makes the person who has disordered eating be like, when I'm skinny enough, then I'll finally be worth it. And it's like, how skinny do you want to disappear? And or the person who's like, once I make this much money, I'll be worth it. And it's like, but you'll never have as much money as Jeff Bezos. So what are you going to do?
Yeah. Preaching to the choir. Like, I love everything you're saying, Kaneisha, because it's one thing to hear that from a coach,
Mhm.
I tell my clients, you have to start from what you really value. It's another thing to hear it from someone who ran $1 million business saying the very same thing and who deliberately took steps to scale it back to live the life that you wanted. And you scaled it back to 600K in revenues, but you ended up making more, taking home more in your
A,
pocket.
a lot more. I feel very sure that in 2020, I kept more money than a lot of people who might have really big Instagram followings or really fancy, shiny websites that say, like, oh, my business makes millions of dollars. Um, I I don't know of a lot of people who are in that kind of $1 to $3 million business range that are transparent about their numbers. Maybe they're transparent with their friends, but I really think that if someone's going to put themselves forward as a business coach, telling people here's how to run your business, that there should be some transparency around their cost structure and how much money they're keeping, as well as transparency of their calendar.
Mhm.
A young man who is determined that I'm going to be his business coach. He's already decided I'm his mentor. So I'm like, okay, I relent. I'm your mentor. We've known each other at this point 10 years. So I'm like, okay, I'm your mentor. But he asked me to be his business coach. And I was like, oh, I'm not sure. And I walked him through my numbers, and I also showed him my calendar to be like, hey, this is how much free time I have. And I think that was even more compelling than the numbers, because you can make more money, but we can't get more time that's already passed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you've been my unofficial business coach for the
Yeah.
past 3 years. So we talk like almost every morning.
Almost every day. Yes.
Okay, so let's take it back to the beginning, Kanisha, to where were you born? Where did you grow up? What college did you go to? How did you get to Harvard Business School and Harvard Kennedy School, public policy? You did both. What
That's
is
right.
that story?
Yeah, so my story, I have a really lovely story. I love my story. It's a very American dream. Um, I present as very polished. And so I think, and sparkly and accomplished and successful. And I do think I am all those things, but it can be really easy to just be like, oh, Kaneisha probably, like, her dad's a doctor and like her mom was a stay-at-home mom and she has a trust fund. And I'm like, oh no, I do not. So I first just want to share some of the hard things or the adversities in my background. So my parents both grew up in Florida, in Central Florida. They were both migrant farm workers. So they did not immigrate from like the Caribbean or West Africa or anything like that. They were born in the States. And so were their parents and their parents. And I'm not sure how far it goes back, but they, as children, had jobs. So they would go to school, and immediately after school, they would go to the orange groves and pick oranges, or they would even travel during breaks around to different states to pick other fruits. They had like a legit like child labor job. That was their childhood. When it was time to graduate from high school, they did not know each other. They grew up about an hour away from each other, but they both received a scholarship to go to St. Edward's University here in Austin. It's a Catholic private school, and St. Edward's still has that scholarship. It's called the Camp Scholarship, and it's like college assistance migrant program. I think those are what the words mean, and it still exists. But basically, it's a scholarship for migrant farm working children. And so they both received that scholarship. My dad's, a little few years older, so he went first, and then a few years later, my mom arrived, and then he was like, "That one's mine," or maybe she chose him. I'm not sure, but they got married. They went to college, got married, and had me. I grew up in what started out as a very kind of middle class neighborhood. We were the only Black family on the street. It was like, white families, and also like military families. But then the military base that was there moved, and all those military families moved. And then it became kind of empty. And that really brought down the property values of the homes. And then a lot of affordable housing moved in. I definitely support affordable housing and things like that. But what can happen is if it happens too quickly and too many of the units, it can kind of collapse the whole neighborhood, which is what happened. There was no tax base. So I grew up in a neighborhood called Dove Springs in Austin, Texas. It was 80% Mexican. And when I say Mexican, I mean like my neighbors would go to Mexico like for the weekend and come back like Mexican. And some documented, some undocumented, but my elementary school, my middle school and my high school were primarily Hispanic and Spanish speaking. And for middle school, I ended up going to a magnet school. So it's a free public school, but you have to apply to get in. And so I did that. And once I was there, Kaneisha, the admissions consultant, was born. So in 7th grade, they would pull me out of class and have me go around to elementary schools to give, and middle schools to give talks about, you should come to our school if you're a nerd. And I would help the kids with their applications. And then I did that again for high school. They'd pull me out of school in class out of high school, and I'd go around to area middle schools to recruit people to the high school. And then again, I did it in college. So I grew up in a neighborhood that when I was growing up had the highest teen pregnancy rate in the nation. We had car seats for our babies when I got on the bus in 6th grade. It was gang land. I remember in 5th grade, people were like, "What gang you run with?" And I was like, "My Little Pony." Like, I'm not in a gang. So there's a lot of growing up really fast that happens when people are getting pregnant in grade 6, grade 7. I also have a younger sister, Kaneisha Grayson. So she is 6 years younger than me, but I just wanted to make sure I included her because she's a part of my story. And we both live here in Austin, as does my dad. And so I did not grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, but nor did I grow up, I also want to make it clear, nor did I grow up actually low income. I grew up in a low income environment. At my schools, let's say 90% of the students qualified for free lunch. Those are called Title I schools in the US, but I did not even qualify for a discount. I used to beg my parents to fill out the form every year, bring it home, the little pink sheet of paper, because I didn't want to be the one kid paying for it. I'm like, I want free lunch. And my mom would be like, "Girl, we're not going to qualify." And we never did. So
How
I
did you
grew,
make
yeah.
it from there to Harvard Business School?
Okay, yes.
Kennedy School.
Right. So when it was time to apply for college, I was at a public high school. I was in a magnet program focused on the liberal arts. So I got a really strong, excellent education. When it was time to apply to college, I got called into the office of like the college counselor for the honors students. And she said, "Look, Kaneisha, you're going to get into every school you apply to." And I was like, "Oh, nice." And she was like, "But I think you should go to a small liberal arts college where you can get a lot of attention, get out of Austin, see some of the world, and see how rich people live. And then you should go to Harvard." And I'm like, oh, she's like, "You should go to Harvard for graduate school." And I'm like, I don't know what graduate school is, but it's a plan. And so really 17-year-old me was like, I'm going to go to a small private school for college. And then I'm going to go to Harvard, a large research Ivy League institution for whatever graduate school is.
I just want to interject here that my mom was that person in my life who, from I was 8 or 9 years old, she was like, "You're going to Harvard." first you're going to Campion, that's at my high school in Jamaica, and then you're going to Harvard. And that
Two.
someone speaking that into you kind of manifests it in your life, right? If they believe you can do it, you believe you can do it. Sorry. So
I
continue.
love that story. I didn't know that story. And I hope that your mom knows that you still remember that.
Mm.
And it is important that someone's able to see that in you and give you that level of belief in yourself. And everyone deserves to have someone like that in their life. And even as adults, if you don't have someone who's serving in that role, that's where people like Lysandra and I can help, is we can serve as the person who sees the person who can get that soul career or get into their dream school. Um, so yeah, maybe you don't have someone like that for free in your life, but you can hire, which is amazing. It's a miracle. You can hire someone who can believe for you
Yeah.
and show you the way. So I decided to go to Pomona College for college. Pomona is a very prestigious, very competitive graduate school, undergraduate college, liberal arts school, very small, 1,400 students. And I had a huge culture shock there. I was used to going to school with white people. I was used to really hard classes. I was not used to being a working class person in a rich environment. I was not ready. It was, to me, looking back, outrageously luxurious. And I'm so glad it was. Like, they gave me my own room. Like, I didn't even have a roommate, freshman year. I had my own room as a freshman. And I was like, is this normal? And our cafeteria food was like very tasty and well made. And we had a day called Ski Beach Day, where they would take us skiing in the morning and then to the beach at night. And we did it every year. It was amazing. I took a class. I don't remember what it was called, but this is the class where I met Shadia, one of my good friends, another ENFP, another entrepreneur. We took a class where it was like every week we went to go see a Broadway play in LA. And I remember me and Shadia, we were the poor ones. And so we were like, can you like pay for us for the plays? Because we can't afford to pay $70 a week. And the school was like, of course. It was just amazing. So I did, yeah.
Actually, we have a mutual friend that went to Pomona, a Jamaican, Stillian.
Oh, Stillian, of course. Yes, yes, yes.
Right?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Stillian was one of the very few Black males in my class. I think we had like 5, maybe 4. It was crazy, ridiculously
Was the
low.
smartest male at Campion in my year. He is ridiculously smart.
Yes.
Okay, but continue your story.
Yeah. So at Pomona, I definitely went through culture shock, but how I really found my way at Pomona was not in trying to fit in. One thing I want to say is it was really shocking to me when I got there because I didn't realize that I had previously been conflating race and class. I had thought like, oh, rich people are white people, like there's poor white people and rich white people. But like, if you're Black or Latino, like you is po. And I didn't know that the Cosbys were not just people on TV. I didn't know that there were Black families with a doctor and a lawyer as the parents. And so when I got to Pomona and people were saying, oh yeah, my mom went to Yale, my dad did this or that. And I was like, what's happening? My head exploded. And so I actually found myself, I felt much more at home with the other working class students of color. So we were like a diverse group than necessarily the Black kids. Because I was like, what do y'all know about my life? You grew up in Beverly Hills. I get that y'all are like super cool doing super cool Black people things, but like, can we talk about I don't have enough money to even get home for Thanksgiving. Like, yeah. That's what I want to talk about. So
yeah. Then how did you go from there to HBS? And
HBS. Yeah. So I studied Black studies in undergrad. So I did a lot of Afro-Caribbean studies, things like that. Didn't really have a plan for after college. I had won a scholarship from the Rotary Club to spend a year in any country of my choice. I had originally chosen South Africa. I don't even know if you know this, but I had chosen to do creative writing in South Africa, which I think could have been wildly fun. But I also felt like apartheid wasn't really done yet. And I just wanted to be somewhere that was like black, and like we're all black. And so I decided to go to Ghana instead. And it was a great choice. I had a wonderful time in Ghana. But that was my only plan that I really had was to go to Africa for a year. So the summer before my senior year of college, I was volunteering at a nonprofit here in Austin called River City Youth Foundation. And I just kind of showed up like, I don't have anything to do. How can I help? And they were like, well, Kaneisha, they knew me from childhood. You're super organized. We want to do a concert, a Stop the Violence Back to School concert for the youth. We expect about 500 people. We have a $0 budget. And can you get all the food and drinks and door prizes for everybody? And I'm like, I'm on it. And so my job, with my little spreadsheet was to, pitch to different restaurants, whatever, that we were doing this concert. And I actually want to say why we were doing the concert. We were having the concert because a cop had shot an unarmed kid in the back. So this is before Black Lives Matter. This was just my neighborhood. So I've been experiencing the Black Lives Matter police brutality issues my whole life. So I took on that task with enthusiasm, and the executive director sat me down and was like, so what are you going to do after college? And I was like, I don't know, move to Africa. And she's like, okay. And what else? And I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll go to the Kennedy School. I don't actually know what happens there, but I helped someone with his application and he got in with a full scholarship. And I like nonprofit stuff. And I was starting to really get interested into social entrepreneurship and social enterprise. So I think I'll apply there and go there. And she said, okay, that sounds good. I think you should also consider Harvard Business School. And I literally Googled, what is business school? And I saw Harvard Business School came up. It's still the main thing that comes up. If you just type in business school, literally Harvard has embodied what even is a business school. Yeah. I typed in just the term business school and Harvard came up. And it was like, do you want to transform the world? Yes. Do you want to, be able to make decisions based on limited information? Yes, I do. Do you want to lead people? I do. Then I looked at the career site and I saw that you could make $130,000 a year in your first job. And I was like, that's more money than my parents make combined. And they're in their 40s. Sign me up.
That is so funny because I didn't know what Harvard Business School was either when someone told me to apply. My mentor, the author of Super Freakonomics and Freakonomics, I was working for him. I wanted to get a PhD in economics. Mm-hmm. And he was like, nope, you should go to Harvard Business School and be a CEO. You should not be an academic with that personality. And I was like, what is business school?
What is Googling our way all the way to oops, now we're here. Yeah. I love it. And you know what he did? He had that vision and belief again.
Yeah, exactly.
So Mona Gonzalez at River City Youth Foundation for me, and then him for you.
Yeah, Steve Levitt. Yeah. Okay. So you applied, you are amazing at writing, amazing at pitching. And so you got into both Kennedy School and MBA.
Harvard Business School, that's right. So then I did actually go to Ghana for a year, volunteer. I actually was in a master's in African studies program and I dropped out. It was an MPhil, which is really the beginning of a PhD. And I was like, I want to have fun. So I dropped out of that. And so I went to Harvard Kennedy School for my first year and then Harvard Business School my second year, and then a mix between the two my third year. Back then, being a joint degree was not very popular. There were maybe 8 of us or something that were joint degrees. And now it is wildly popular and extraordinarily competitive to do a joint degree between the Kennedy School and a business school.
I wanted to do the same joint degree, but coming out of the PhD track in economics, when I looked at what I wanted to do was the MPA ID at Kennedy School, which is
I think that
on a program. But when I looked at the curriculum, I was like, I cannot do more econometrics, honor statistics. I can't do that anymore. I'm just going to have fun at business school. and forget
Exactly.
NP school.
No, totally understand. I did a program that you can't even do anymore. I did the MPA MBA, and that was perfect for me. The MPA is all electives. So you can still do that, but you can't do it if you want to be a joint Harvard.
Okay.
But yeah.
Interestingly, the former CEO of the Branson Center who hired me did MPA ID at Harvard Kennedy School.
Oh,
It's really
wonderful.
interesting.
I
Okay.
didn't know that.
So we went, and that's where we met each other. Met each other at HBS. You were in your second year, but your first year in the business school,
That's right.
right? And I was in the first, just attending business school, and we met each other in analytics, which is the orientation program for people from non-traditional backgrounds going into Harvard Business School.
Yeah.
The rest is history.
Yes.
I want to fast forward a little bit to graduation because we went to business school during the Great Recession 10
Yes,
years
we did.
ago. And when we were graduating, we were the class with the lowest percentage of graduates in history that had full-time jobs post graduation. The history of HBS at the time. We took a trip to LA. They gave us money. They started giving.
They sure did, to like help us.
Go find a job here. Have some money to go find a job. So we're like, we'll take the money and go to LA and have fun. But then you decided, I'm not going to get a job. I'm going to start a business. That was a pretty radical decision at the time. How did you make that decision when everybody else was trying to get a job?
Yeah, I mean, I just wasn't in a scared place. I was in a place of a possibility and expansion. Why? Because I had nothing to lose. Well, no, nobody has a job anyway. So like for me, it was like I'd never made any full-time income because I'd gone straight from college to Ghana to the Kennedy School. So it wasn't like I didn't even know what it was like to make 60, 70, 80, 90K. I only knew what it was like to make $15 an hour. So there's one is I had nothing to lose. I had no mortgage, no kids, no partner. Two, I had tried out life in corporate America twice. I did an internship with Eli Lilly. I did another internship with Nestle. They treated me so well. They paid me well, and it was soul destroying for me. Not because the projects they had me working on were terrible. They actually gave me really cool projects. It was just the hierarchical environment, not having a window close by, not receiving enough sunlight, having to come into an office every day, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., my little 30-minute lunch, and sitting in meetings all day. When are you supposed to get your work done? And when you're in meetings all day, none of that was for me. I still sit at a desk, but I am bathed in sunlight. I go to the dog park 4 times a day. I start every morning chatting with Lysandra. Like, it's a different flow of life. So for me, I know it looked extremely courageous. It was, but it was to me the natural thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's still such a risky decision. Many people have a really hard time saying, I want to be a full-time entrepreneur because of the comparison with their peers. And for us graduating from Harvard Business School, the comparison, yes, a lot of our peers didn't have job. It was a recession, but a lot of them were making not 130K, which is the average, but 400K, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you went straight into PE coming out of HBS. And yet you decided to take this grant. HBS was given a grant at the time to people who wanted to start their own business. You won the grant. It was $10,000 from HBS, and that started this journey for the act of applying. So I want to ask you, Kaneisha, if someone right now is thinking of leaving their full-time job in a traditional corporate job and want to be a full-time entrepreneur, what are 3 tips you would tell them to think about as they make that transition?
For sure. I would just make sure, it doesn't need to be an all or nothing thing. I like to tell people replace dollar for dollar. So go ahead and start your business, start your side hustle, and start charging. Don't spend a year building up an audience with nothing to sell. Like, go ahead and start taking on clients or selling your program or selling your class or your services or coaching, whatever. Start making some money, and you trade dollar for dollar. Okay, I make 80K in my job. Okay, and I made 3K this year in my side hustle. Awesome. And you keep on, making more and more money in the side hustle. Once you've hit about 40% of your full-time income, then I think it's okay to go ahead and think about making that jump. So it doesn't need to be quit your job, start your business, because that's too stressful to not have money coming in. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is to be consistent. People, high achievers, we're used to winning. We're used to getting an A+. We're used to things working out for us. But that's not how entrepreneurship works. Entrepreneurship is about grit. It's about experimentation. It's about learning. It's about picking yourself back up and trying again. And so things may not work the first, second, third, fourth, fifth time. It took me, I spoke to 18 people on free 90-minute breakthrough calls before the first person said yes.
Yeah. Selling in an online business is, it takes grit. It takes
Yes,
grit.
it does. And you don't have to be the person who sells forever, but you do need to, at the beginning, be the person. And then, so consistency, keep showing up. I guess that's really persistence, rather. Let's call it persistence. Keep showing up. And then lastly, I will say consistency. Like, the greatest way to build a platform and build an audience is to choose your platform, whether it's Instagram or YouTube or blogging, which is the way I choose, is really blogging, YouTube videos, and now podcasting. And choose some sort of publishing schedule, whether it's once a month or once a week, and do that consistently.
Yeah.
When you do that, you can become an expert, a known expert in anything.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about it, but I started out as both an admissions consultant and a dating coach and relationships expert. And why did I get to call myself an expert? Because I just kept producing content on a consistent basis. So those are my 3 tips. Persistence, consistency, and then the first one is cash flow. So getting that cash flow.
It as a side hustle first. That's amazing. Yeah. I wanted to touch on that dating coach side of your life to close, because I don't know how many people who know you now know that you started out in business school with an amazing blog that got so much traction called Crazy Girl Nation.
Yes.
And you wrote a book called Be Your Own Boyfriend. And we had a little focus group where we read dating books every month. Me,
Yes,
you, and my roommate, Diana.
Yeah.
Because most women at Harvard were trying to get a Harvard husband.
we were, whether we were all committed to that to some degree, but it was on all of our minds. Unfortunately, I feel like me and you were very confused.
We were also very young, right? We were
very
young. Youngest woman to be at Harvard at 26,
yes.
4 years old when I got in.
Yeah, exactly. I guess I was 25 then. Yeah. So yeah, we were young, and also didn't have examples of even how to date high caliber men. So anyway, that was fun. But what was the question?
Tell us about your dating coach life and how did you transition out of it, or
for
why?
sure. I started Crazy Girl Nation because I wanted to explore being an online television personality, and I needed something to be my brand. And I'm like, well, the one thing I love talking about is dating and relationships. And so I started my blog, and I think I would blog like once or twice a week. I'm not even sure, but I was consistent, and it got a huge following. I'd say 50,000 visitors a month. Any collaboration I wanted, I could do. And I wasn't charging or anything. It was just traffic. It wasn't even running ads. I was just traffic. And I ended up, letting that go and focusing on the art of applying, because I was like, I need income, and this is actually bringing in some great income. But that part is still there. I love talking about dating and relationships, attachment theory. And then, a cute little way to maybe wrap this all up is to talk about my May 1st again. So I, in 2019, I declared that I would like to meet my beloved, my partner, by May 1st, 2020. And you and I worked together through a book called Calling in the One. And I got really clear on what I was looking for. And April 20th, I met a man, and we are now very in love, very committed. And it's just amazing like that it happened, so we're not engaged, we're not married or anything like that, but he is my partner, and we're really happy, and we're well suited. So I guess I would say that all of the challenge has been worth it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Where you are today versus where you were 2.5 years ago, just for anyone listening to your story, persevere, get help, get support through the hard times,
Yeah.
because what's on the other side of that is a beautiful life.
Yes.
I want to wrap up this episode by saying that as ENFPs, we have the most nomadic personality type. It's the bohemian, nomadic. We like to experiment and try different things and do different careers, and we're very entrepreneurial. And your life doesn't have to look one structured way. You can have fun with your life. That's what we're here to do. And you're doing that through the art of applying. I'm helping my clients do that through Soul Career.
Yes.
And I just want to inspire everyone listening that you can design a life that fits you. And Kaneisha's story is showing us how you can design a business that fits the lifestyle that you want to create for yourself. So with that, Kaneisha, thank you so much. This was amazing to have you. And I'll talk to you tomorrow morning.
Yeah, talk to you tomorrow morning. I had a blast. Thanks for having me, Lysandra.
Awesome. Bye. If you love this episode, remember to hit subscribe and leave us a review. And if you're a professional, executive, or entrepreneur that's interested in taking one of our coaching programs, head on over to soulcareer.com and sign up for a free consultation. We would love to hear from you.